Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 2. We have been reading the purport by Srila Prabhupada to Text 2. Would somebody like to read?
Yes, I can read.
Please.
The impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature, and above this is the personal feature of the absolute truth, or Bhagavan. Srimad Bhagavatam gives information about the absolute truth in its personal feature. It is higher than impersonalist literatures and higher than the Jnana Kanda, division of the Vedas. It is even higher than the Karma Kanda, division, and even higher than the Upasana Kanda, division, because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. In the Karma Kanda, there is some competition to reach heavenly planets for better sense gratification, and there is similar competition in the Gyan Kanda and the Upasana Kanda. The Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to all of these because it aims at the supreme truth, which is the substance or the root of all categories. From Srimad Bhagavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as the categories. The substance is the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, and all emanations are relative forms of energy.
So as we were yesterday saying, what is the Upasana Kan? So with the Vedas deals with Karma Kan, Jnana Kan, Upasana Kan. Here Prabhupada is mentioning the Karma Kan involving one engages in some kind of activities, rituals to go to the heavenly planets. Then the Gyan Kan is trying to become one with the Supreme Lord. And Upasana Kan involves worshipping the different demigods. And of course, the perfection of Upasana Kan is to worship Supreme Lord Krishna. But so the Vedas deals with this, but Bhagavatam is higher than that because Bhagavatam is only speaking about the absolute truth. The absolute truth and his energies. And that's the reason Bhagavatam is superior. Bhagavatam is the cream of the essence of all the Vedas. Srila Vyasadeva, he's put it, these are like, we may think that these are just, ordinary stories, but this is the essence of all the Vedas, devotional service, pure devotional service, understanding Krishna's position as Supreme Lord, understanding the relationship between the individual soul and Krishna, and the relationship of this material energy and Krishna. Understanding that Krishna is the absolute truth and everything else belongs to him, is energy.
Nothing is apart from the substance. At the same time, the energies are different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. Srimad Bhagavatam especially promulgates this simultaneously one and different philosophy of the Vedanta Sutra, which begins with the Janmadi Asya Sutra.
So simultaneous one and difference. Just like sunshine and sun. Sunshine, we see the sunshine, we say, the sun is there. But sunshine is not really the sun, it's the energy of the sun. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Absolute Truth, is the Supreme Person. Everyone, everything belongs to him. It says energies. Yeah, so one and different. So how we are one with God, we are same in quality. Krishna is Satchidananda, we are Satchidananda. But quantity, completely different. God is unlimited. He's omnipotent, whereas we are minute. So Vedanta Sutra, which begins with Janma Adi Asya Sutra, simultaneous one and difference. Okay.
This knowledge that the energy of the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord is an answer to the mental speculator's attempt to establish the energy as the absolute. When this knowledge is factually understood, one sees the conceptions of monism and dualism to be imperfect. Development of this transcendental consciousness, grounded in the conception of simultaneously one and different, leads one immediately to the stage of freedom from the threefold miseries. So, the threefold miseries are those miseries which arise from the mind and body, those miseries from natural catastrophes over which one has no control. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the
Second,
devotee unto the
the second, those misery inflicted by other living beings.
sorry, those miseries inflicted by other living beings, and those miseries arising from natural catastrophes over which one has no control. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the devotee unto the absolute person. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the absolute and at the same time in the eternal position of servant to the absolute. In the material conception, one falsely thinks himself the lord of all he surveys, and therefore he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know his real position as transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all miseries. As long as the living entity is trying to master the material nature, there is no possibility of his becoming servant of the Supreme. Service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately freed from material encumbrances.
Prabhupada is going on to explain simultaneous one and different. You know, monism says that the energy is different, is the same as the absolute truth, that everything is one, everyone is one. But no, actually, there is simultaneous one and yet different. One, why? Because we are part and parcel of God. Different, why? Because we are not God. God is unlimited, omnipotent, omniscient. We are tiny parts. We have his qualities, but in minute quantity. God is omniscient. He knows everything at all times, past, present, and future. But we can see right now we've forgotten even our true identity. So immediately we can see that, oh, the Lord, He's Abhigya. We were saying He's Abhigya. Yes, He's completely cognizant, whereas we forget. So there is a difference between God and us. So understanding simultaneous, one and different, that we are part and parcel of God. We are spirit souls. We are not the body. We are spirit souls, part and parcel of God. So Prabhupada is saying one who can understand this can get liberation. What is that? Stage of freedom from threefold miseries. What are the miseries?
The miseries which arise from the mind and the body,
Yeah,
and the miseries which are by other living beings,
yeah,
and the third from natural catastrophes.
yeah.
Catastrophes.
Yeah, so our own mind and body, our own physical and mental illnesses inflicted by other living beings, even like the pests, they might trouble us. And natural catastrophes, we were just coming up, we just came out of a pandemic, you know. So, surrender of the devotee unto the absolute person. Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, surrender unto me. And Bhagavatam is beginning with the surrender, understanding that the absolute person, Krishna, he's God, and the individual soul, we are his eternal servants. We are falsely thinking that we are the Lord. We are falsely thinking we are controller, supreme controller. We are thinking we are the supreme enjoyer. But we have to understand that we are servants of God. We are not God. And as soon as we will be able to understand this, that is liberation. That's coming to the platform of the soul, Brahman platform, understanding that I am spirit soul, part and parcel of God. And at that position, one engages in pure devotional service without any material motive, because one understands one's spiritual identity. Krishna also says, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate para. That when one comes to the Brahman, then one engages in pure devotional service. Mad bhaktim labate para. So from the Brahman platform, understanding that I am part and parcel of God. I'm spirit soul, part and parcel of God. I'm the servant of God. And then one engages in pure devotional service and that platform. So that is liberated platform. That's above the modes, beyond the modes. Understanding I'm not the body. Yeah.
Over and above this, Srimad Bhagavatam is a personal commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Sri Vyasadeva. It was written in the maturity of his spiritual life through the mercy of Narada. Sri Vyasadeva is the authorized incarnation of Narayana, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, there is no question as to his authority. He is the author of all Vedic literature, yet he recommends the study of Srimad Bhagavatam above all others. In other Puranas, there are different methods set forth by which one can worship the demigods. But in the Bhagavatam, only the Supreme Lord is mentioned. The Supreme Lord is the total body, and the demigods are the different parts of that body. Consequently, by worshipping the Supreme Lord, one does not need to worship the demigods. The Supreme Lord becomes fixed in the heart of the devotee immediately. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended the Srimad Bhagavatam as a spotless Purana and distinguishes it from all other Puranas.
Srila Vyasadeva, he is the author of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he is also the one who has compiled all the other Vedas. There was one big Ved. Then he wrote it down. Then he separated it into Rig, Yajur, Sam, Atharva. Then he's written the commentaries, the Puranas. He's written Upanishads. So much work. And he is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. No ordinary person can do that. No ordinary person will be able to write down the Vedas and give commentary on the Vedas. So, and everyone knows that he is um, the incarnation of God. And he himself is recommending. He's saying, okay, I've done so much work, I've written so much. Vedanta Sutra, so he wrote all the Vedas, right? Now, Vedas are very vast. So he wrote them in coded form. That is the Vedanta Sutra. Then the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra, that is Srimad Bhagavatam, his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So after writing so much literature, so it means after gaining so much experience, then finally in his maturity, he's written Srimad Bhagavatam. And he himself is recommending that study Bhagavatam. And Lord Chaitanya is saying it is the spotless Purana, Amala Purana. There's nothing of sense gratification in Bhagavatam, only pure devotional service, only speaking about the Supreme Lord. Other Puranas, they speak about worship to demigods, but Bhagavatam, it's only worshipping the Supreme Lord. So one may say, oh, but I need to worship the demigods. Yeah, we respect the demigods. They're highly qualified persons. And by studying Bhagavatam, we in fact can be able to respect them properly, understanding that they are part and parcels of Krishna. They are very highly qualified. They are the departmental heads, like how there's Department of Agriculture, Department of Education, Department of Transport. So similarly, the demigods are departmental heads in the government of Lord Krishna. And they are worshipped automatically when we worship Krishna. When we worship God, automatically we are worshipping all the demigods. Just like pouring the water on the root of a tree, automatically the entire tree becomes green.
The proper method for receiving this transcendental message is to hear it submissively. A challenging attitude cannot help one realize this transcendental message. One particular word is used herein for proper guidance. This word is shushrusu. One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification.
So Prabhupada is telling us how we should receive. This is a transcendental message. It is not a book of just, material stories. We may think, oh, what's all this I'm reading? But this is transcendental. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. And so should we receive this knowledge? Hearing. How to hear? Submissively. Just accepting whatever we are hearing. If Prabhupada is saying challenging attitude cannot help one realize this transcendental message. Because we are in darkness, we don't know. So instead of challenging, instead of fighting what we are hearing, we just submissively receive it, understanding with humility that I don't know. Let me try to hear what is there. Shushushu. Prabhupada is saying anxious. That is a qualification. The desire to hear Bhagavatam is a qualification to hear Bhagavatam. That one has the desire to hear about Bhagavatam. Then one will be anxious to hear Bhagavatam, and then one will be able to realize the message of Bhagavatam.
Less fortunate persons are not at all interested in hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. The process is simple, but the application is difficult. Unfortunate people cannot Unfortunate people find enough time to hear idle social and political conversations, but when invited to attend a meeting of devotees to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, they suddenly become reluctant. Sometimes professional readers of the Bhagavatam immediately plunge into the confidential topics of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which they seemingly interpret as sex literature. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning. Those who are fit to assimilate this work are mentioned in the shloka. One becomes qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds. The intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by the great sage Vyasadeva that he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Without undergoing the different stages of realization set forth in the Vedas, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahimsa, Paramahamsa simply by agreeing to receive this message.
This is the potency of Bhagavatam. The qualification to hear Bhagavatam is the desire to hear Bhagavatam. And the way to hear it is to hear submissively. And then Srila Vyasadeva is saying that one who's very fortunate is able to hear Bhagavatam. One who has done many, many pious activities is able to hear Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam, some professional speakers speak on Bhagavatam, but that is not the way to study Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam needs to be studied right from the beginning, right from the first canto, first chapter, first verse, and then systematically going on to progress to the other cantos. Otherwise, we will not be able to understand, get into the mystery of Bhagavatam, understand the confidential topics of Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is to be heard from the devotees, because the devotee can reveal the message of Bhagavatam to us. And Srila Vyasadeva is saying that one who studies the Bhagavatam, see, he's writing that intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by the great sage Vyasadeva that he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Bhagavatam. Means by hearing Bhagavatam, we will be able to see God. We will be able to understand God. Srila Prabhupada would say that when we study Bhagavatam, we will see Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam. So by regularly studying Bhagavatam, reading Bhagavatam, one can come to the highest stage. Here, Prabhupada is saying, without undergoing different stages of realization, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramhams, simply by agreeing to receive this message. So we need to simply submissively hear the message of Bhagavatam and apply the principles of Bhagavat in our life. Are there any questions or comments?
No, all clear.
No, I had a question. What does it mean, Paramahamsa?
Paramahamsa is the pure devotees. You know, the highest, like the Hamsa is the swan. The swan, he knows how to separate milk from water. If it's a mixture of milk and water, he will drink up the milk. So the Paramhams, they are the pure devotees. They engage in pure devotional service to Krishna.
Okay. Thank you.
So we are going on to the third verse of the Bhagavatam now. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam.
Nigama kalpa tarur kalitam phalam.
Phalam.
Shukkam mukhad amrita drava samyutam.
Shukka mukhat amrita drava samyutam.
Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam.
Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam.
Muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavuka.
Muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavuka. Does anyone else wants to read?
I can read.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Translation. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadev Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Purport. In the two previous slokas, it has been definitely proved that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the sublime literature which surpasses all other Vedic scriptures due to its transcendental qualities. It is transcendental to all mundane activities and mundane knowledge. In this sloka, it is stated that Srimad Bhagavatam is not only a superior literature, but is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures. In other words, it is the cream of all Vedic knowledge. Considering all this, patient and submissive hearing is definitely the essential. With great respect and attention, one should receive the message and lessons imparted by the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Prabhupada is pointing out the first two shlokas are helping us understand Bhagavatam is completely transcendental. There is nothing material in Bhagavatam. There are other Puranas that deal with sense gratification, but Srimad Bhagavatam is the Amal Puran, the spotless Puran. It's completely transcendental. It's the ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures. Because Srila Vyasadeva, he wrote all the Vedic literatures, then he wrote the Vedanta Sutra, then his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra is Bhagavatam. So after writing so much in his maturity, he has written Bhagavatam. After getting so much experience, so much realization, he's written Bhagavatam. Ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures is the cream of all Vedic knowledge. So all the Vedas are there, and then you know how you boil the milk, you boil it, the cream, that's really the rich part. So Bhagavatam is the essence of all the Vedas, the cream of all the Vedas. So how to hear? Prabhupada is saying, patient and submissive hearing with respect, great respect and attention. What we have to do is we simply receive the message of Bhagavatam, the lessons of Bhagavatam.
The Vedas are compared to the desire tree because they contain all things knowable by man. They deal with mundane necessities as well as spiritual realization. The Vedas contain regulative principles of knowledge covering social, political, religious, economic, military, medicinal, chemical, physical, and metaphysical subject matter, and all that may be necessary to keep the body and soul together. Above and beyond all this are specific directions for spiritual realization. Regulative knowledge involves a gradual raising of the living entity to the spiritual platform, and the highest spiritual realization is knowledge that the personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all spiritual taste or rasas.
So, God created the world, and then God gave us the Vedas. Veda is knowledge. Just like, we buy a TV, we get a manual of how to properly work the TV to get the most out of the TV. Similarly, God gave us the Vedas. Tene Brahma Hridaya Yadi Kavaya. We just heard in the first verse of Bhagavatam that Lord Krishna, he spoke the Vedas into the heart of Brahma. So Vedas is knowledge dealing with any and every subject matter that we need to know. It could be social, political, religious, economic, military, medicinal, chemical, physical, metaphysical. All knowledge is coming from Vedas. There's no knowledge that we need to know which is not contained in the Vedas. Everything is there. So Vedas are telling us about material things, of how to live in this world, also telling about spiritual subject matters to help us understand that we are spirit souls. And the highest spiritual knowledge, understanding that Supreme Lord Sri Bhagavan, he is the Ras Bihar, reservoir of all spiritual tastes or rasas. Everything exists in God. Everything is coming from God. So a gradual elevation of consciousness.
Every living entity, beginning from Brahma, the first-born living being within the material world, down to the insignificant ant, desires to relish some sort of taste derived from sense perceptions. These sensual pleasures are technically called rasas. Such rasas are of different varieties. In the revealed scriptures, the following 12 varieties of rasas are enumerated: Raudra, anger; Adbhut, wonder. Shringar, conjugal love. Hasya, comedy. Veera, chivalry. Daya, mercy. Dasya, servitorship. Sakhya, fraternity. Bhayanaka, horror. Bibhatsa, shock. Shant, neutrality. Vatsalya, parenthood.
So the different emotions that one goes through, right? The different emotions. And we, each of us, we are looking for some kind of a experience, a sensual experience. That's why we are here in this material world. We want to experience different emotions, different. Uh, so here, these are in the scriptures. These rasas are 12 in number. These pleasures, they are 12. This is given in the revealed scriptures, and then
The sum total of all these rasas is called affection or love. Primarily, such signs of love are manifested in adoration, service, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. And when these five are absent, love is present indirectly in anger, wonder, comedy, chivalry, fear, shock, and so on. For example, when a man is in love with a woman, the rasa is called conjugal love. But when such love affairs are disturbed, there may be wonder, anger, shock, or even horror. Sometimes love affairs between two persons culminate in ghastly murder scenes. Such rasas are displayed between man and a man, and between animal and animal. There is no possibility of an exchange or rasa between a man and an animal, or between a man and any other species of living beings within the material world. The rasas are exchanged between the members of the same species, but as far as the spirit souls are concerned, they are one qualitatively with the Supreme Lord. Theref- Therefore, the rasas were originally exchanged between the spiritual living being and the spiritual whole, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The spiritual exchange of rasa is fully exhibited in spiritual existence between living beings and the Supreme Lord.
so out of these 12 rasas, these 12 varieties of rasas, there are 5 primary rasa. The 5 primary rasa are neutrality, shanta, going on to dasya, servitorship, going on to sakhya, then going on to vatsalya, parenthood, and going on to conjugal love, shringar. So neutrality, then servitorship, dasya, neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love. These are the primary rasas. Then, inside this rasa, there will be different kinds of emotions. There can be wonder, there can be comedy, there will be chivalry, there can be mercy. So those secondary 7 rasas keep coming and going. There could be horror, shock, but the primary rasa is there. Now we have to understand that all these rasas, this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So we may think that these kind of exchanges are there only with the body. No, but the real exchange is with the soul and God. Each and every soul has a relationship with God in any of these 5 primary rasas. Yeah. So that is what we have to understand, that we are in this material world, we are exchanging rasa between one man to another, human being to human being. Animals are exchanging with animals, like for example, there is um, conjugal love, Prabhupada is saying, between man and woman. And in that conjugal rasa, there could be so many different, there could be wonder, there could be comedy, there could be, so many different rasas go on internally. within that relationship of conjugal love between man and woman. So, because we are spirit souls, we are originally having our rasas with God, the spiritual living being, and the spiritual whole, the supreme personality of Godhead. We are the spiritual living being. We are individual soul. And God, He's a supreme soul, supreme personality of Godhead. We are individuals. God is an individual also, although He's supremely individual. Yeah. So this is what we have to understand, that the original rasas are there on the spiritual platform, because one may think that on spiritual platform there is nothing. There is nothing in the spiritual platform. But no, the reality actually exists on the spiritual platform because we are spirit souls. We are eternal. And God is eternal. He is the supreme spirit.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is therefore described in Shruti mantras, Vedic hymns, as the fountainhead of all rasas. When one associates with the Supreme Lord and exchanges one's constitutional rasa with the Lord, then the living being is actually happy.
We are trying to exchange these rasas with each other in this material world. Because we are thinking we are the body, so we are having this rasas on the material platform, but actually we are spirit souls. So we can be completely happy only when we can have this exchange of rasa with God. You see, God, He's the source of everything, ultimate source of everything, of everyone. He's the one who's created everything and everyone. So He's the fountainhead of all rasas. All rasas exist because they exist in Him. They're all coming from Him. So each of us has a rasa with God, and we can be happy only when we can exchange this ras with God, this emotion, this relationship with God. And that is our constitutional position. That's the constitutional position of the soul.
These Shruti mantras indicate that every living being has its constitutional position, which is endowed with a particular type of rasa to be exchanged with the personality of Godhead. In the liberated condition only, this primary rasa is experienced in full. In the material existence, the rasa is experienced in perverted form, which is temporary, and thus the rasas of the material world are exhibited in the material form of Raudra, anger, and so on.
So the Shruti mantras are telling us that each soul, constitutional position, when we are saying living being, means the soul. Soul has constitutional position, means each and every soul has a particular relationship with God, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we can be situated in this relationship only when we are liberated. We can fully exchange, we can fully be situated in that relationship. We can fully relish that relationship. We can act in that relationship after liberation, in the liberated condition. Because right now we are thinking we are the body. So we are engrossed with relationships in the material world. But our real relationship is with God. So the relationships in the material world are in a perverted form. But in the true form, in the pure form, they exist in the spiritual world. The material world cannot have something that the spiritual world does not have. Cannot be, because how can the reflection exist without the reality? The reality exists. That's how there can be a reflection. So the real relationships are in the spiritual world. The relationship between every individual soul with God.
Therefore, one who attains full knowledge of these different rasas, which are the basic principles of activities, can understand the false representation of the original rasas, which are reflected in the material world. The learned scholar seeks to relish the real rasa in the spiritual form. In the beginning, he desires to become one with the Supreme. Thus, less intelligent transcendentalist cannot go beyond this conception of becoming one with the spirit whole without knowing of the different rasas.
So, in the beginning, one wants to become one with God. You know, when one begins one's spiritual journey, one may want to become one with God. But as one continues advancing in the spiritual journey, one understands, oh, that that my goal is not to become one with God, but to reestablish my relationship with God, the real relationship. That's our eternal relationship with God. So we need to know about these relationships. Right? So this is what Prabhupada is saying. One who attains full knowledge of these different rasas can understand the false representations of the original rasas, which are reflected in the material world. So in the material world, all these rasas, these relationships, these emotions are all reflections. They are reflections of the real emotion, the real relationship.
In this sloka, it is definitely stated that spiritual rasa, which is relished even in the liberated stage, can be experienced in the literature of Srimad Bhagavatam due to its being the ripened fruit of all Vedic knowledge. By submissively hearing this transcendental literature, one can attain the full pleasure of his heart's desire. But one must be very careful to hear the message from the right source. Srimad Bhagavatam is exactly received from the right source. It was brought by Narad Muni from the spiritual world and given to his disciple Sri Vyasadeva. The latter in turn delivered the message to his son Srila Sukadev Goswami, and Srila Sukadev Goswami delivered the message to Maharaj Parikshit just 7 days before the king's death. Srila Sukadev Goswami was a liberated soul from his very birth. He was liberated even in the womb of his mother, and he did not undergo any sort of spiritual training after his birth. At birth, no one is qualified, neither in the mundane nor in the spiritual sense. But Sri Sukadev Goswami, due to his being a perfectly liberated soul, did not have to undergo an evolutionary process for spiritual realization. Yet, despite his being a completely liberated person, situated in the transcendental position above the three material modes, he was attracted to this transcendental rasa of Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by liberated souls who sing Vedic hymns. The Supreme Lord's pastimes are more attractive to liberated souls than to mundane people. He is of necessity, not impersonal, because it is only possible to carry on transcendental rasa with a person.
Prabhupada is going on to explain that the liberated persons actually can relish the sweetness of Bhagavatam. Those who are already liberated, they are situated on the Brahman platform. They've understood they are not the body, they are the soul. They can actually relish the sweetness of Bhagavatam. Just like Sukadev Goswami, he was liberated. From the beginning, from the womb of his mother, he's a liberated soul. He did not need to do anything to become liberated. He was already liberated. But when he heard Bhagavatam, he became a lover of Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is completely transcendental. We have to submissively hear Bhagavatam. So, and then Bhagavatam can can just fulfill all our heart's desire, attain full pleasure of his heart's desire. One becomes blissful by hearing Bhagavatam, but Bhagavatam have to be heard from the devotees, from the right source. Bhagavatam is brought from the spiritual world by Narad Muni. He gave it to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva gave it to Sukadev Goswami. Sukadev Goswami is speaking it to Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit is going to die in 7 days, and he's asking Sukadev Goswami, what should I do in this situation? And Sukadev Goswami recites the Srimad Bhagavatam. Maharaj Parikshit asks him, what is the duty of every living entity, of every human being, and specifically one who is about to die? And Sukadev Goswami is telling him one should hear Bhagavatam. So such is the potency of Bhagavatam. So the Leelas of the Lord, the Supreme Lord's pastimes can be actually relished by one who is liberated. Conditioned souls, we are conditioned souls. We are not able to appreciate the pastimes of the Lord as much as the liberated persons are able to relish, because they're already liberated. They have no material conception. They have no material desire. They're liberated. And then they are able to relish and appreciate the pastimes of the Lord.
Hare Krishna, anyone wants to continue to read? If no, I'll continue. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the transcendental pastimes of Lord are narrated, and the narration is systematically depicted by Srila Sukadev Goswami. Thus, the subject matter is appealing to all classes of persons, including those who seek liberation and those who seek to become one with the Supreme Whole.
So whatever our position may be, we simply hear Bhagavatam, and it appeals to everyone, one who wants to become liberated, one who wants to become one with the Lord, one who has material desires. Everyone gets satisfied by hearing Bhagavatam. And in Bhagavatam, transcendental pastimes of the Lord are narrated. So the pastimes, the Leelas of the Lord are transcendental. They're not mundane. They're not material. That's why it's so satisfying to the heart, because these are transcendental subject matters. It's not of the material world. There's nothing material in Srimad Bhagavatam.
In Sanskrit, the parrot is also known as sukha. When a ripened fruit is cut by the red beaks of such birds, its sweet flavor is enhanced. The Vedic fruit, which is mature and ripe in knowledge, is spoken through the lips of Srila Sukadev Goswami, who is compared to the parrot not for his ability to recite the Bhagavatam exactly as he heard it from his learned father, but for his ability to present the work in a manner that would appeal to all classes of men.
So why the Bhagavatam, which is already relishable, become more relishable? Because it's being spoken by the lips of Sukadev Goswami. Because he knows how to appeal to everyone. The way he's speaking it has become even sweeter. Bhagavatam is always sweet, but it's become sweeter. So like how this bird, the parrot, he's going to eat the sweetest bird, the sweetest fruit. So this is how the Bhagavatam, the Vedas are like the tree. They are the desire trees. Whatever we want, desires can be fulfilled. And the ripened fruit of this tree is Bhagavatam. So this fruit has become more sweet because it's being spoken by Sukadev Goswami. This Vedic fruit is mature and ripe in knowledge. Yeah? Because there's so many vast Vedas. They're like desire trees. Whatever we want, desire can be fulfilled. But the fruit of the Vedas is Bhagavatam, and become more sweet because it's spoken by Sukadev Goswami.
The subject matter is so presented through the lips of Srila Sukadev Goswami that any sincere listener that hears submissively can at once relish transcendental tastes which are distinct from the perverted taste of the material world. The ripened fruit is not dropped all of a sudden from the highest planet of Krishna Loka. Rather, it has come down carefully through the chain of disciplic succession, without change of disturbance. Foolish people who are not in the transcendental disciplic succession commit great blunders by trying to understand the highest transcendental rasa known as the rasa dance without following in the footsteps of Sukadev Goswami, who presents this fruit very carefully by stages of transcendental realization. One should be intelligent enough to know the position of Srimad Bhagavatam by considering personalities like Sukadev Goswami, who deals with the subject so carefully. This process of disciplic succession of the Bhagavad school suggests that in the future also Srimad Bhagavatam has to be understood from a person who is factually a representative of Srila Sukadev Goswami. A professional man who makes a business out of reciting the Bhagavatam illegally is certainly not a representative of Sukadev Goswami. Such a man's business is only to earn his livelihood. Therefore, one should refrain from hearing the lectures of such professional men. Such men usually go to the most confidential part of the literature without undergoing the gradual process of understanding this grave subject. They usually plunge into the subject matter of the rasa dance, which is misunderstood by the foolish class of men. Some of them take this to be immoral, while others try to cover it up by their own stupid interpretations. They have no desire to follow in the footsteps of Srila Sukadev Goswami.
So Prabhupada is explaining to us how we should hear, who we should hear from. The Bhagavatam is coming from the spiritual world, from Krishna Lok. But it's not dropped, like how mango, suppose there's a ripe mango. So there is a chain of people. It's not that the fruit somebody plucks from high on the tree and then he just throws it on the floor. If he's going to throw it down, the fruit is going to be destroyed. It's carefully handed from one person to another, and that's how it comes down. Similarly, Bhagavatam is coming like this. It's coming in the disciplic succession so that the knowledge is the same. It's the pure knowledge without any change, without any disturbance. This is how to hear Bhagavatam. Hear it in the disciplic succession, not from professionals. Because the professional, they don't know how to present Bhagavatam. Sukadev Goswami knows how to present Bhagavatam. He's gradually, step by step, he's bringing, if somebody is supposed to be studying 5th standard math, and then one is trying to understand PhD math, they won't be able to understand it. There's going to be too much confusion. So professional people are always trying to comment on 10th canto of Bhagavatam, especially rasa dance, but without understanding the foundation, without understanding the first canto, second canto, third, coming up to 9 cantos. One just jumping into the 10th canto, one will misunderstand the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So we need to hear how Sukadev Goswami is presenting it right from the beginning to gradual elevate our consciousness. Like gradually one goes from first grade to second grade, third grade, fourth grade, like that. That's how Bhagavatam is to be understood. And this is how Srila Sukadev Goswami is so carefully, he's presenting the subject of Bhagavatam to us. So hearing, and this is the reason it's so important to hear from in the disciplic succession.
One should conclude, therefore, that the serious student of the Rasa should receive the message of Bhagavatam in the chain of disciplic succession from Srila Sukadev Goswami, who describes the Bhagavatam from its very beginning and not whimsically to satisfy the mundaner who has very little knowledge in transcendental science. Srimad Bhagavatam is so carefully presented that a sincere and serious person can at once enjoy the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge simply by drinking the nectarian juice through the mouth of Sukadev Goswami or his bona fide representative.
Here again, Prabhupada is pointing out the importance of hearing in disciplic succession from Sukadev Goswami, because Sukadev Goswami knows how to present Bhagavatam, and one who is sincere, one who is serious, can really, and here Prabhupada is saying, enjoy the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge. Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge. How? By hearing it from the mouth of Sukadev Goswami. And this is how Bhagavatam becomes like a nectarian juice and fills our heart. So we'll stop here for today. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you so much for listening and enjoying it. Hare Krishna.